Thanks for coming on the podcast today. I wanted to talk to you broadly about EVs, talk about Tesla, and this all-new Yoke that Tesla is going to be putting in the Model S and Model X, their new steering wheel.
Hey, happy to be here with you, Ryan, and talk about Tesla and EVs. It's a new world, a brave new world.
Wonderful. Thank you. And speaking of the brave new world, have you seen the new Yoke? And what are your thoughts on it?
This is not unusual for me because I've seen it in a lot of newer race cars. The GT3 AMG has it. Others. I've driven cars that have it. I drove a Norma prototype that had a yoke. And that's fine as long as you never have to steer any further than this, or maybe this.
And so let's dive into that, because I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about. This is not just a prototype or a race car. This is a car for the masses. This is, at least to the best of my knowledge, one of the few cars or only cars that will have this that is under $100,000 and is going to be driven to the grocery store daily. So do you have thoughts on why Tesla would do something like this, or where it might be inconvenient, especially if you need to turn beyond 90 degrees?
Well, first of all, I would ask that question, why? Although, in a sense, there might be an advantage, because the ideal driving position from all my experience and what I teach is 9 and 3. You hold the wheel widespread, you got a lot of steering correction either direction, and you know where straight ahead is. And all that works great until you need more than that much steering. And so perhaps they're going to combine it with a quicker steering ratio. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that to be the case.
Given especially your experience at Pikes Peak, it sounds like you prefer, when you're racing, to maybe have a round wheel. Would you prefer the yoke or a round wheel in racing?
I prefer a round wheel. When I grew up learning skid pad training, I was working for the Skip Barber Racing School in BMWs in the early 90s. And at the time, they had quite slow steering ratios. And what that meant was, if you got real sideways, you had to do a lot of steering correction. Like my hands are now, hand over hand. Take a bite, pull the other side over, grab more even. And if you stop the slide, you have to steer it back straight as fast as you can. And with a yoke, you can only go so far. Maybe part of the reason a yoke works in a GT3 type race car, or a lot of modern professional and high-level race cars, is they have a ton of aerodynamic downforce. And if the car ever gets more than a little bit sideways, the aerodynamic downforce quits. Wings don't work when they're sideways. Splitters aren't as efficient. Diffusers don't work. So you're in big trouble already.
My philosophy on this is that it's either you want to be driving and really intently driving, and so you want the yoke to feel like you're really in it, or you want it out of the way. And so by making a yoke, maybe it's not even more for the race aspect, but it's more for hey, there's just less surface area, less things to congest where you're enjoying your driving experience.
You get a better view of the dash in front of you.
That's true. Do you think the average person could learn to use a yoke?
The average person can learn to use the yoke, yes. I do think it's going to be awkward in steering situations where you need a lot of steering, parking, hairpins, because depending on the steering ratio, if you have to go beyond that point, now it gets weird, because it's so specific to the 9 and 3 hand position. I think it's going to be very awkward for normal drivers. I'm real interested to hear what their reason for it is.
Yeah, they haven't said. They just kind of showed it. They haven't even really fully explained it. I'm hoping that they will kind of explain it, because whether it's, as I'm suggesting, just for the different styles of driving, either you're on autopilot or you're very intently driving. But as you're saying, it doesn't seem to be something that's all that helpful. You'd prefer to have a round wheel. But why do you think Tesla would do this? Just to be different, or do you think that there's actually some reason why this makes the car better?
Well, from my point of ignorance here, my off the cuff, I think it's just to be different. I think there is actually an advantage to forcing people to drive with their hands widespread. That's a good technique. But I think it will be awkward in parking situations, and it could be downright difficult in a major car control situation. But most drivers aren't capable of handling that anyway, frankly. And a lot of the times, stability control, the vast majority of the time, will keep the car from ever getting that sideways, unless you hit something or something hits you. I think it may cause more problems than it solves. It's going out on the edge to have a yoke. Airplanes never go any further than that. It's changing the ailerons or whatever. But cars do. So if they don't have a much faster steering ratio, drivers are going to have to deal with this funny shape. Mm-hmm. It will get the hands in a better position, though.
Tesla's claiming that the Plaid and then the Plaid Plus are basically going to be the quickest cars in a quarter mile, quickest 0 to 60 of any car ever. The Plaid Plus will do 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, as well as do a quarter mile in less than 9 seconds with 1,100 or more horsepower. It has 3 motors with carbon sleeved rotors and torque vectoring, which torque vectoring, as we all know, is relatively available in really like sports cars, race cars, but all of this is going to be less than $150,000. So does that excite you?
Oh yeah, that kind of performance is very exciting. It's outrageous. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is it dangerous? Yes, in some situations, depending on how sophisticated this accident avoidance systems might be. There could be, well, I know these systems are constantly developing and improving, and if they're good enough, they will help with that. But when you have a relatively heavy car with a lot of power, that's a lot of momentum, and you have to be able to stop all of that in a hurry too. And it adds up to a lot of fun, and owners are going to have to be responsible about it. Drive responsibly. Use your 1,000 horsepower responsibly. There's an old saying that I think was by race driver Mark Donohue a long time ago, where he said, "I don't have enough power until I can spin the tires all the way down the straightaways." Well, it would take a lot of power to do that. And what he meant was, to go as fast as you can, you've got to be using 100% of your tire grip all the time. And if you're ever not using the maximum grip you have, you're wasting time. And on straightaways, a good car will accept a lot of power without spinning tires. And I could tell from running last year that our unplugged Model 3 could easily use far more power on the straightaways. It has the chassis and the grip to put that to the ground and bring that time down. A couple seconds happens real quick in a straight line, and boom.
So a question I asked when I first met you back at Buttonwillow a couple of years ago was, what is your daily driver? And if it's not a Tesla, what would it take for basically be like us? So is there anything that Tesla could do? Does this excite you in the way that you're considering getting one yourself? Or what would it take for someone like Tesla to make an EV that would become your daily driver?
Well, number one, I'd say in general that the EV, and especially the Teslas with which I have the most experience, are fantastic daily drivers. Quiet, smooth. They make downshifts seem so antiquated, so obsolete. I've been driving manual transmissions my whole life. I enjoy it. But I have to admit, when I accelerate in first and then have to let off, put in the clutch, move the lever, let the clutch up, go back to power the whole time while the EV is driving away smoothly without a ripple in the passenger's drink. That makes shifting seem so old-fashioned and antique, and it's tough in traffic to see a hole in traffic and want to be in that hole, but you're in fifth or sixth gear, and you got a downshift, automatic or manual. You got to go through all this machination, whereas an electric, just toe in and whoosh, you're there. And so for a daily driver, an electric makes a lot of sense. And I'm so ingrained in gasoline power. I like the sound, the shifting. I'm used to all that. But it is a lot of work for just running around town. And what would it take? That, I don't know. I can't answer that yet.
So I wanted to wrap up kind of with just some kind of like thoughts about the future. So you've set several records at Laguna Seca. You're well known for that, among other records around the world. But I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, are you excited to potentially, you know, being that you've worked with different OEMs in the past, are you excited to potentially work with them in the future? Do you think that, you know, Tesla believes that they can actually set the record, I believe, at Laguna Seca for any vehicle ever, as well as be, I think, sub 7 minutes at the Nürburgring. So what are your thoughts as far as Tesla's place in the future, and maybe even your place helping them in the future to achieve some never-seen numbers?
Well, I am all for lap records and pushing the envelope, pushing the limits. And I like the performance focus of those kind of goals, because they've got to make the car handle right and stop right and just drive well to have any hope of accomplishing lofty goals like that. I think the power is the easy part. I think the hard part is getting the car to go that fast while it's carrying the amount of weight it needs to in battery to generate the power. And I imagine there are battery technologies in process that may be able to accomplish that later on. Weight is the enemy of speed, but power and low center of gravity are friends of speed. So it'll be interesting to see that technology progress. I do hope to continue to be part of it. I just recently set a couple records with Gunther Works in a retro Porsche 911 that had been highly modified with modern technology. And I hope these opportunities keep cropping up.
Absolutely. I hope so too. I really, I look forward to seeing you again at Pikes Peak this year. I'm looking forward to actually completing that documentary on our time out there last year. And I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ryan. I love talking about unplugged performance and the whole electric world because it's here.
Absolutely.